and welcome to another edition of the Schmozcast. I'm your host, Anthony New. In the studio, we got Andre Martinez. How we doing, Andre?
I'm doing wonderful.
That's what I like to hear. And we're about to bring Chandler Daniels onto the show as well in just a moment. Got a big show today. There was a free pay-per-view last night. I think we're going to start with that. But first, let's get Chandler on the show. Chandler, welcome to the show through the K-Sun hotline.
Yes, hello.
Hello. How are you doing this morning, Chandler?
Oh, I'm still a little bit under the weather, but I'm kicking out at 2 over here.
Oh my goodness.
2 3/4.
That's okay. All right, good stuff. That's good reference there. So apparently there was a free Ring of Honor pay-per-view last night, and I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on it. Apparently you guys both watched it. I didn't even know that this was happening, so I suck. And
to be fair, I did send a mass text message to everybody yesterday before it started, so that's on you. But yeah, it was a really good event. The two main events were incredible, and I just want to say something about Dalton Castle. I've seen a lot of Dalton Castle as far as outside of the ring in promos with the boys, stuff like that. I haven't seen too much of him in the ring. He really made me more of a fan of his last night watching him, because that was the first time I really got to see him. He was in a 6-man tag match with the boys, and that was the first time I really got to see him extensively in the ring, and he's a really good performer. I mean, I don't know how much you've seen of him, Chandler or Frony, but I mean, I'm a fan.
I am also a fan of Dalton Hardcastle. I think the gimmick's weird, but I'm behind it. I'm not sure what his ceiling is. I don't know. Do you guys feel there's a WWE future for him or no? Chandler, we'll go to you first.
I absolutely think that he could be used in the WWE, whether it be NXT, SmackDown, or Raw. There's absolutely space for Dalton Castle. I have pretty much watched him since his Peacock gimmick was a thing. When he was with the boys, when the three of them came together in Ring of Honor, I've pretty much seen him since that point, and I have been an absolute fan of his, as you guys said. And, honestly, I kind of thought that his ceiling in Ring of Honor was going to be winning the 6-man tag titles with the boys, but here we are. He is the current defending Ring of Honor World Champion, and he's looking fantastic as such, which is why that changed my opinion. And I don't see a ceiling for him. He has it all. He is a great competitor. He's charismatic, insanely entertaining. I think that he can go straight to the top.
A dream matchup, if you will, would be, to me, Velveteen Dream and Dalton Hardcastle. I think they could even be a great tag team. It sounds weird, but man, I think that could work. I don't know if WWE will ever open their doors to him, but I'm with you that he could certainly be on any part of any show. And I just wonder if this is something that we'll need to wait maybe a year or two once again, where Vince McMahon maybe focuses more on the XFL and Triple H is going to say, come on in, buddy, and maybe let the peacock fly, if you will.
You say you don't see that happening, but several years ago, did you see Shinsuke Nakamura, Kevin Steen, El Generico, Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, all those guys? Did you AJ Styles, Bobby Roode, Eric Young? Did you see any of those guys as WWE guys? I saw maybe one or two. I didn't think we were gonna see. A few years ago, I wouldn't think we'd seen all them. So, I think it's a very real possibility. I think it's not going to be for the foreseeable future, though, because I don't know what his contract situation is like or anything like that, because I didn't plan on talking about him. It's just that's one of the first things that popped in my head as I was thinking about the event last night. And I don't know what his contract situation is like, but I could see after a few years or so, because he's world champion now, why would he be leaving that situation? Because he's not going to, no offense to him, but he's not going to be jumped into the world or universal title scene in the main roster anytime soon if he did jump up. So I think he's in a good spot. And like I said, that's like the first time I extensionally saw him last night. So I look forward to, I'm going to get Honor Club when it comes out for sure and subscribe to 4 wrestling subscription networks because I'm like that. But I'm looking forward to seeing more of Dalton Castle.
He really is one of the best parts about Ring of Honor. And going back to this, let's talk about the Bullet Club drama. I don't know, did any of this play out last night at all?
No, and they actually, I mean, we can get into the drama more specifically, but they didn't. The Young Bucks did not have any interaction with Cody, Hangman, or Marty Scurll, and the three of them, being Cody, Hangman, and Marty, were involved in a 6-man match, and they didn't have any interaction with the Young Bucks. The Young Bucks had their own tag match. Nobody came out with each other. It was those three and those two. So they haven't really furthered it at the pay-per-view. I think they're waiting to build that storyline up, and I think they want to have the drama of who's siding with who, what's going on. Is Kenny officially out of the Bullet Club? And it's really confusing, and it's really complicated, as the title of their most recent Being the Elite episode was. So I really like that they didn't address it last night.
Chandler, where do you stand with this? I'm sure you would like to see the storyline extended too. There's a lot of unanswered questions, but if it comes down to it, is this going to be a NWO Wolfpack situation where Kenny Omega maybe breaks away from the Bullet Club or has his own version? And who would you side with, Cody or Kenny?
Oh man, I do not know if I can answer the question of who I would side with.
Yeah, which eyeball do you prefer?
Oh man, seriously. I guess I would say Kenny, just for loyalty reasons. He's been in the Bullet Club longer, so in my eyes, he truly is still the leader. And I know Cody, coming in and having his claim to that as well. But as of right now, I would probably say Kenny, but I definitely could see myself swaying either way as days go on.
For me personally, I'm going with Kenny. Where if he's Bullet Club or not, that's gonna be my guy. Right now, to me, he is the best in the world, and that's who my allegiance would be towards. I think that I would like to see Kenny stick with the Bullet Club, but either way, I'm going to be on Kenny's side, I guess, of this storyline. However, I still love Cody Rhodes. He has had an amazing year and a half or so since leaving WWE. He is spectacular. He's doing the best stuff he's ever done has been now since he's left WWE. And I actually don't think that Cody needs the Bullet Club or Bullet Club needs Cody. I think they're fine separate from each other, and that might even put
Bullet Club is fine.
Bullet Club is fine. Everything is fine. So I think Cody Rhodes could actually be on his own. I think that he can be sort of I don't know, I think he could be the Ric Flair sort of this generation. I know that's saying a lot, but I really do think that's where Cody is right now, because he is more of the territorial, regional, which kind of not to get the vaudevillains in here, but a product of a bygone era. And
he's way better than that, dude. He literally, Cody improves every single time I see him step in the ring. From Wrestle Kingdom 12 to last night, and then whenever we see him next, he improves every single time. I am really excited for what Cody's going to do. I don't necessarily think he's going to remain with the Bullet Club per se, and I don't necessarily think Kenny is out. I think that there's a lot of ways they can go with it. I could see, you talk about the NWO Wolfpack type of deal, I could see Hangman and Cody Rhodes and maybe Marty Scurll breaking off. There was a I don't know. There was a scene in one episode of Being the Elite where Kenny Omega and Kota Ibushi smoothly walked into the Young Bucks hotel room, and they shut the door, and we didn't get to see what they were talking about. I don't know, man. I'm conflicted as to who I would quote unquote side with, because Kenny Omega is one of the best, if not the best, in the world, and one of my favorites. But Cody Rhodes is quickly ascending the ladder, and you all know how I feel about Marty Scurll. So it's really, for me, this is really cool because I'm getting to try and see who's going to go where. I love the fact that that Hangman seems to be firmly on Cody Rhodes' side from what little we see, whereas Marty Scurll is really the one that's the most conflicted. The Bucks seem to be leaning towards Kenny Omega, but Marty seems like he doesn't want there to be a problem, and it looks like he's forced to have to choose a side. So I'm really curious and interested to see where this whole storyline goes.
Is this the most important storyline that the Bullet Club have ever really had or been a part of?
Probably. I'm a newer Bullet Club fan, so I didn't get to see all the Prince Devitt and stuff like that. I only saw very, very little bit of the AJ Styles stuff. So I don't know. I would say from when I've started to watch over the Adam Cole stuff, all that, yeah, this is the biggest issue in Bullet Club history.
Chandler, are you on board with that? This seems to be garnering the most attention for the Bullet Club, which can be a really good thing. And then I want to get your thoughts on Cody Rhodes being outside of the Bullet Club, which, like I said, I think he can be the next Ric Flair. And I don't know how many, that's about, in wrestling, about as good as a compliment as you can give somebody.
Yeah, absolutely. I could see him being that, as you said, territorial kind of guy where he kind of just works the indies and that pretty much was what he was doing for a bit before he joined the Bullet Club. But I could see him, if they wanted to like have him do that for a longer period of time, kind of bring that prestige back to it, as a Ric Flair did back in his day. Yeah, I could totally see Cody being that person. And as far as I know, as Andre said, I don't know the entire history of the Bullet Club, but as far as I've seen, this is definitely the biggest, most important thing that's happened for the Bullet Club, and it's tough to, it really is. It's tough to pick a side if you must.
And as fun as and as cool as it is a little bit bittersweet because it is. I love everything that they're doing, and I don't want to see them change, but I completely understand that you have to change in the wrestling world, otherwise you'll get stale, and eventually you won't be as hot as you were. So it's the right move, but it is, and it's fun and it's interesting and it's got my attention, but it is a little. They poke fun at it with Marty Scurll singing and all that, but I mean there is a little bit of a, oh man, this kind of sucks because these buddies they're not seeing eye to eye right now.
Part of my hope is there's always the worry that WWE will ruin somebody. Kenny Omega's contract was up in late January. I still don't know exactly.
He signed for another year.
He signed for, okay, so it was a year. It wasn't like a 6-month extension that this storyline could play out, but maybe
2019 its contract ends. Early 2019.
So maybe the seeds are being planted now for this storyline to really go the distance. Ultimately, I want to see Kenny Omega in WWE. I would like to see Cody Rhodes, maybe outside of the Bullet Club, and maybe someone else can come up and be the leader of the Bullet Club. But I don't think that Cody Rhodes or Kenny Omega at this point need the Bullet Club for their star to shine as bright as it can. I think that they're fine either way. Obviously,
I don't think anybody in Bullet Club needs Bullet Club. You could argue maybe Hangman does, but
that's where I would start.
Hangman is watching that pay-per-view last night. Hangman's a really, really phenomenal. No, I can't say that if it's not AJ Styles. I apologize, AJ. Hangman is a really good, really, really good in-ring competitor, and I really like the three of them together, Scurll, Cody, and Hangman, and I hopefully see more of those as a team, more of them as a team, especially now that I'm going to get the Honor Club plug.
So the Ring of Honor free pay-per-view last night, you guys also saw Emma debut as Tenille Dashwood. What was your guys' thoughts on the new name and gimmick?
Oh, that's her real name.
Oh, how about that? Captain Tenille.
But yeah, I marked out, kind of jumped out of I popped out of my seat a little bit. Didn't expect it, didn't see it coming. And I think she's going to do fantastic in Ring of Honor and just on the indie scene in general, because you know that if she's in Ring of Honor, she's just going to be everywhere now, working the women's independent scene. We might see her in Shimmer, who knows.
I popped as well as soon as I saw the screen. They don't have a Titantron, so I don't know what their big screen. When I saw it say it's still all about me, I was like, oh my goodness, it's Emma. And then she came out, and I marked out as well, and it was great. She's gonna try and contend for their new women's title, which is called what's the name of their women's title, Chandler? Do you know?
The Women of Honor Championship.
Yep. And it's new, right? No one's won yet, so she's going to try and be the first. They're doing a tournament, it sounds like.
And the tournament hasn't even started yet. So, but yeah, the Women of Honor Championship, that's what they call the women's division. It's Women of Honor.
Give me maybe an example that you guys know of, or maybe Emma can be the first, sort of the Cody Rhodes of the women's division or the Women of Honor division. Someone who went from WWE, who wasn't utilized, who went back on the indies and really just blew up and exploded in terms of popularity and greatness, I guess.
Gail Kim is the first one that comes to mind. I mean, she was she was top of the top in WWE though too. So it wasn't like she was floundering in WWE and then left and became a star. She was, from the moment she was in WWE, she was one of the best women wrestlers in that company. So it's no surprise that when she left, she was still a star everywhere she went. So that's the first person that comes to mind, but I can't think of anybody else. Maybe Chandler?
Yeah, Chandler, do you have someone else other than Gail Kim? Someone that maybe was underutilized, similar to Cody Rhodes and also Emma now using her real name, Tenille Dashwood?
I can't think of anyone off the top of my head.
But I can imagine that Emma's going to be the first. I think she's really will kind of follow in the footsteps of Cody and be that, just explode hopefully on the independents now and be a lot more important than she was really on WWE since after NXT, really WWE kind of dropped, I would say they dropped the ball with her.
They had that silly dancing gimmick, and then they teamed her with Santino and then put her back in NXT. It was just...
But the bubbles. Okay, so now 205 Live is controlled by Triple H. This is a great move. They've already done some good things this last few weeks, having to deal with the Enzo Amore garbage and setting up a tournament that will culminate in a championship match to see who is the next cruiserweight champion. I really like what they're doing. It seems that importance will be put back on wrestling instead of silliness, which is the way that 205 Live ought to be. I know that contributor to the show, Zach, doesn't like them having their own show at all and thinks that it separates them. I'm okay with them having their own show. I'm okay, but I'm also okay if it goes away. But I think you need to have 2 cruiserweight matches on Raw. And I like Itami being in there. I like them using Tyler Bate. I like them using Roderick Strong, who you maybe wouldn't have even thought of as a cruiserweight. He's very big if you look at him compared to the rest of the division and his body and everything. I think Cedric Alexander would be another person that are right on the borderline, I would think. But using these guys who are in putting on longer matches, more important matches, and not just having a lot of the silliness. So I love this move. I think the more Triple H, the better right now in terms of being in control, getting his guys into place. And what do you guys see for the future of 205 Live? Chandler, we'll go to you first.
I think that 205 Live, the horizon is so bright for them. For all the reasons that you mentioned, I think that now it's going to feel a lot more like how the Cruiserweight Classic did. And I think that the in-ring competition and the people's talent is going to shine, and that's going to be the forefront and the focus, and that's the way it should have been this entire time, especially with this division.
You know, when Enzo first came to the 205 Live roster, I was on board with it because it did bring more viewers and it was entertaining. And even taking away the recent controversy and him losing his job there, I think this is the right decision because even though that was fun and entertaining, you guys are right. It has to be a different show than what's on Raw and what's on SmackDown. Raw and SmackDown are too similar themselves, in my opinion. We can talk about that another time or another segment or what have you. But 205 Live needs to be more wrestling focused, needs to be more like the Cruiserweight Classic, like you said, Frony. It needs to be geared toward us hardcore fans, us quote-unquote smart fans that want to see the in-ring cruiserweight style on a not nightly basis, on a weekly basis every Tuesday night. You know, I haven't been a big 205 Live watcher. I started a little bit back up when Enzo came on and kind of even dropped out from that. But I'm definitely going to be tuning in now, and I'm really excited about this tournament. There are still a couple of spots still available in that tournament. Am I right? Or is it
no, you're right. There's still a lot of unknowns. It's a 16-man tournament, and we still don't quite know exactly who's all in. There was a match made now for Tuesday between Tony Nese and Drew Gulak. I think there's still another couple first-round matchups that are undecided that could be a lot of different people. We saw Rey Mysterio at the Royal Rumble, but it looks like he's scheduled to wrestle Jushin Thunder Liger and for New Japan at Strong Style on March 25th. So we thought that would be a good spot for him. Maybe he could come back and bring some prestige to the Cruiserweight division. It looks like that's not the case.
Who else do you want to see that's not on the Cruiserweight roster?
Leo Rush would be somebody that I'd love to see come from NXT to the Cruiserweights. He is so explosive, so fast. I know he's very young, but we look at Velveteen Dream, and sometimes it doesn't matter. You just got to go with who you got, and maybe he does lack some experience, or maybe doesn't. He just lacks the age, I guess. And I think Lio Rush deserves to be on the cruiserweight division at this point. Do you have someone you're thinking of?
I have two names that people may not want to see them in the cruiserweight division per se, but just because they're in this tournament doesn't mean they have to be in the division. But I think what will make this tournament must see, which it already is, but I would love to see Ricochet and Aleister Black, because they're both under 205 pounds. I know Aleister Black doesn't look or feel like a cruiserweight, but he fits the criteria. I'd love to see him in that tournament. I'd love to see Ricochet, because Ricochet he's top of the top cruiserweights in the world today.
Absolutely. Mandrews, Pete Dunne. There's a lot of other people. Xavier Woods would be another one that I would love to see.
Boggles my mind that Pete Dunne is under 205. That just, wow.
Yeah. He's the bruiserweight. I want to say he is right at 205.
I think he is.
Chandler, do you have someone that we either mentioned that you would be your go-to person to see in the cruiserweight division on 205 Live in the new, I guess it's not the Cruiserweight Classic this time, but the Cruiserweight Championship Tournament, or someone we didn't mention that you thought of that might work pretty well on Tuesday nights on 205 Live?
No, you guys pretty much nailed it with all the names that you said. I definitely would be interested to see Pete Dunne in this tournament, especially because he's the United Kingdom champion. So it would be cool to see if how far he could get in the tournament and possibly end up holding two titles. Tyler Bate would also be. I feel like he's under 205, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, he actually lost in the first round last week. He had the tights. I think. Right. Yeah, TJP
right.
I think won on a tights pull.
Yeah. Yep.
I hate TJP.
Just kidding. Another interesting thing about so you lost some classic WWE style entertainment with the Enzo Amore thing. I think Xavier Woods going on to 205 Live would bring a lot of that back and expand upon that. Plus, you get Big E as the manager or the muscle, and Kofi could be involved too. I think that would add a fun element to 205 Live without making it too silly, which it has been over the last year. I really would love to see more of the New Day. They used to be on a 3-hour show. This would kind of help get them even more time. And we've talked about this before. We're okay with the New Day being together, but not necessarily being a tag team. You could see
or a full-time tag team.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's that's why I think we all want to see Big E push to the top. Kofi. I know we disagree about this, but
so does the New Day. By the way,
of course.
I don't know if you saw that clip of them when they were talking, when they answered the question of who should contend for the Universal title, and both Big E and Xavier Woods did a little back and forth, and then both said Kofi.
Yeah. So Jeremy Borash is now with WWE. He was supposedly a lifetime NXT or TNA lifer, and he was a big part of the broken or woken gimmick in TNA and beyond. Is this a big deal for WWE to pull him into the fold, and what does that mean for the future of Matt Hardy?
It's a huge deal. More, not just for Matt Hardy, because he's going to be working under Triple H in NXT. And rumor has it, I'm trying to remember who, I don't know if it was Meltzer or not, so I don't want to throw his name out there for sure, even though I just did. But someone on the dirt sheets say that Triple H is basically building a team for himself. And Borash did, yes, he was crucial in the Broken Universe in TNA, but he wore a lot of hats for them. He did a lot for them from what I hear, from a creative standpoint, production standpoint, stuff like that. So I hear that Triple H is trying to build a team for himself when he takes over the main roster, which is really going to be fun in the future. But that is in the future. I'm more excited for. I know he's working on NXT, but who says he can't get involved with some of that woken, broken stuff? WWE tweeted out a recent video, and it seems like Matt hopefully is getting more into the universe, because him and the Good Brothers and then Finn Balor, they did a promo back and forth and brought up the dilapidated boat Skarsgård, and the Lake of Reincarnation was mentioned by name. So I'm really looking forward to it. And now that Matt Hardy owns all the rights for the Broken Universe, other than some video stuff that Impact still owns, which they have, I heard, licensed to WWE too, which really makes things interesting. But I'm really curious to see I hope that we're going to get to see a lot more, and I think we will. I think that the Bray Wyatt thing is going to stretch out till WrestleMania, and we're going to get to see a lot of, hopefully, outside of the ring stuff.
Chandler, is this as big a deal as Andre wants it to be? I don't mean that in a bad way, but you're very much, you're our in-house Matt Hardy mark. Yeah,
delete shirt.
Exactly, and you can catch that on our YouTube page. But Chandler, your thoughts on the Borash signing?
Honestly, I didn't realize that it was that all of those things were going on. I knew that Borash did have a big hand in making the broken gimmick, but I didn't realize all to the detail that Andre just mentioned, everything that was going on. So I think that's awesome. If all of that were, if signing Jeremy Borash, if that's what it means for all of that stuff, then that's awesome.
Matt Hardy tried, when he left for WWE back in April 2017, he tried to get Borash to come with him. That's how much, and both him and Jeff have given a lot of credit to Jeremy Borash and what he did at TNA, not just with them, but just behind the scenes in general.
Yeah, I think this is going to lead to at least the next few months of a lot of fun. And
NXT
hopefully Borash
is building something really, really special. I mean, they have, but it's growing.
If you're Shane McMahon, and I know he's been away, he was away from the company for 5-6 years, are you at all jealous that Triple H seems to be the guy who is the brainchild behind all these awesome things that are coming up? Or are you just happy that WWE is still going to be as big or even a bigger deal, and maybe some of the hardcore fans, such as us, will enjoy it a lot more once Vince McMahon is less in the picture and ultimately out of the picture? Or where do you think Shane falls into this? I mean, it's his legacy is on the line, but now it's in the hands of his brother-in-law.
I don't know. I mean, I can't speak for him because I don't know how he thinks, how he feels. I know me. I know if I was in his shoes, honestly, yes, I'd kind of personally, I'd feel a little jealous just because I would feel like, shoot, I left at the time. Maybe I shouldn't have left, even though he says that it was good for him because he got to grow in business and stuff like that. But I don't know. I'd feel kind of jealous. It's kind of like the whole Shawn Michaels thing he talks about when he got hurt, how he did feel jealous that he missed out on some of the big Attitude Era moments and years. So I could imagine that maybe he would, but at the same time, I don't want to speak for him. But he did have that interview was it with Stone Cold or was it with Mick Foley? I can't remember, but he got interviewed on a podcast on WWE Network.
Foley, I believe.
Foley, yep. And he tried to downplay, but it did seem like he had a little bit of animosity toward Triple H when his name came up in the interview. They asked him, "Are you happy that I forget the question, but it was about him and Stephanie and sister, and he's like, my sister's happy, and that's all that matters. And he didn't kind of really talk about it, so it just seemed like there might have been, but at the same time, you don't want to read into
what could be a storyline.
So,
and I know it's still years later, just a couple, but still, you never know, right? And that ultimately maybe was a part of why they were in charge of each show, and so that could all be tied in there. So you're right. It might be something, it might not be. Chandler, put yourself in Shane McMahon's shoes. Are you happy about the possible legacy maybe of Triple H outshining what his dad built? Or what do you if you have to get inside the mind of Shane McMahon, what would you think about all this?
I mean, I feel like a part of me I definitely want the best for the business. That would be, what is, whatever that may be, and it's not just the tagline, not just the saying. Actually, I would want what is best for the company and seeing it grow and further and get better and all that type of stuff. But there absolutely would be a part of me that would be a little bit resentful and a little bit maybe angry at myself for leaving, maybe resentful towards the fact that my brother-in-law is getting what I kind of would have thought would be mine by birthright kind of thing. I I don't know, but ultimately, I would just want to see the company itself do it the best that it could.
And ultimately, since Triple H is a professional wrestler and Shane McMahon isn't, maybe he just has a better insight as to why that is.
That is incorrect. Both Edge and Christian would disagree with you, and they both have spent a lot more time in the ring than either you or I have. So I'm going to take their words for it, and the WWE's contract words for it too, because that's kind of ultimately what's the legally binding thing in this whole situation.
But isn't his contract really to be an on-air talent and behind the scenes?
Which he's paid for, and then he's paid more when he wrestles. So therefore, he's paid to wrestle. So he's a professional wrestler when he steps into the ring.
I have been paid to coach basketball. I am not a professional coach.
Were you paid to coach at the professional level? Because if Shane was paid to wrestle in the Indies, then I guess he'd still be a professional wrestler. So he's paid to wrestle in WWE. So he's a professional wrestler. He's held championships in WWE. You've never coached in the NBA. You've never won an NBA championship. So that's not the same comparison.
Chandler, do you want to jump in, or shall I continue?
Let's continue.
Okay, so if I've been to Costa Rica, I am not Costa Rican. If I get a BJ on camera, it doesn't make me a porn star. Shane McMahon is not a professional wrestler.
Whoa. Shane was paid to wrestle. If you would have gotten said action on camera and were paid by the person that filmed it, then yes, you would be
a whore,
a pornography artist, or what have you. If you went to Costa Rica and you got dual citizenship, then you'd be a citizen of Costa Rica, which is basically what Shane McMahon is. When he wrestles, he gets paid for it. It's not doing it for free. It's in his contract that he gets paid more. Because he's paid the same as Stephanie McMahon, but he makes more than her because when he steps into the ring, he gets paid for it.
I actually prefer the term sexual entertainment superstar as opposed to...
So can then we agree that Shane McMahon is a sports entertainer when he steps into the ring, just like AJ Styles is a sports entertainer when he steps into the ring, based on their contracts?
I just don't think so. Chandler, do you have any thoughts on this? Where do you lie on this?
I mean, I feel like there's a gray area now. I know I was starkly no at first, but things that Andre are saying is kind of making sense to me right now.
It's hard to go against Edge and Christian because they're great.
I think
Edge and Christian.
I think a lot of other people would argue, even guys who wrestled as much or more
who would
than
argue it? They're the only two that have actually spoken on the matter, and we know what they think.
Well, we'll have to investigate that further. Another topic for another time. You're listening to the Schmozcast right here on 103.5 The Sun, WLSP LP, Sun Prairie, Wisconsin. And some other things going on. Of course, we talked about the XFL. And Andre, you think the XFL is doomed for failure once again. Why is that?
If everything that we're hearing is true, then yes, I do. If Vince, in his mind, wants to keep politics out of it while being very political, it's not going to work. You're gonna alienate a large, not only number of fans, but I forget, there was a former professional football player that said that they're not going to get enough of the better players because of if you're mandating them to have to stand for the anthem and then saying it's not a political thing, then they're gonna, and I don't want to get this into a political debate at all. I'm just talking about the prospects of getting players that didn't make the NFL. Those kind of the players that are more socially active are not going to want to play for the XFL, and they're already going to be. He says it's going to be a better quality football, but they're already going to be behind the eight ball because the best football players in the world are going to be in the NFL still. Yeah, there might be a few that fall through the cracks, but at the same time, the quality of football is not going to be to the level of the NFL. And I know they're going to take 2 years to get it right. And I know that Mr. McMahon said that he's going to let the football people make football decisions. But at the same time, it's really hard to put out a good quality of football when you don't have the best football players in the world to do it. It's going to be the guys that didn't make it in the NFL and the guys that didn't make it in college, so they didn't get a chance to go in the NFL. So yeah, you may have a handful of players here or there, but it's not going to be the pace of football and the quality of football that's going to throw away all the political, non-political stuff out the window. You're not going to have the quality of football to compete with the NFL.
Chandler, you think that this version of the XFL will last longer than the original iteration?
I think that it will, just because they're planning it out a little bit better than a year. So, which is within a year, the first XFL went from concept to kickoff, and that was really one of in my eyes, the biggest reasons why it failed. They just did not plan the first time around, and with them, not debuting until 2020, is it?
Yep, the plan is for 2020. So he's given himself 2 years to really set things up.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know how much longer it's gonna be. I don't know how much better it's gonna be, but that's at least one step in the right direction to me, is actually planning it out and giving yourself time to understand and possibly scout talent and all that type of stuff, just to get ready to have a professional level football league. But what Andre said is right. It's ultimately it's going to be the level of play that determines whether or not it's successful. And if it's not on par or better than what we get from the NFL, it's not going to succeed. It's not even going to be able to compete. People are going to watch it for a quarter at most and decide whether or not they're going to continue to watch this game, continue to watch this league. So that's ultimately what's going to be the deciding factor in my eyes. Political stuff and just how things are being ran, all that type of stuff aside, it is going to come down to how good of play the game has, and I don't know if they'll be able to.
Do you guys think that Vince McMahon smelled blood in the water with the NFL's ratings dropping and all the controversy and the political stuff behind it? Do you think that he thinks that the WWE is right? Or, excuse me, hopefully that's not a Freudian slip. Does he think the NFL is ripe for the picking and that they can jump in and be a legit competitor? Or do you think he's trying to make a second option?
I think it's a combination. I think that he does kind of smell blood in the water. Ratings from the NFL are down. Kids are Pop Warner is not going to be a thing. I actually think that in the next 20 years we're not going to see tackle football. I think there will be some sort of
for kids
other iteration of tackle football, even at the highest level. I don't see this. Also, like, the NBA is on the way up, the NFL is on the way down. You have concussions, you have guys who beat women, you have a lot of horrible human beings that continue to get jobs. Meanwhile, someone who doesn't stand for the national anthem is the enemy. There's a lot of bad things about the NFL, and I don't think that Vince McMahon is going about this the right way, basically gearing it towards Southern white Republican fans, in my opinion. And whatever side you stand on, it doesn't matter. He's gearing it towards a very direct, small sector. I mean, not that small, but still, it's not an all-inclusive league, it seems. And there's a lot of hypocrisy. We'll get into that in a little bit. But let me ask you guys this. What would get you guys to watch the XFL?
If Colin Kaepernick was a starting quarterback in the XFL, and I'd watch that, and that would instantly be my favorite team because I'm a huge Colin Kaepernick fan.
And you also, I mean, the part of that is allegiance to 49ers, but that goes,
Jimmy
obviously
G.
This goes much bigger than that. Chandler, what's going to get you to watch the XFL?
Oh, man, at this point, I honestly do not know. Curiosity.
I think that's a good point. I think that's how it's going to go the first few weeks, similar to the original version of the XFL. The curiosity factor will increase ratings, but how long that is sustainable, I don't know. Some of the differences or similarities, he's going to have 8 teams, 40-man rosters, 10-game regular season, a 4-team playoff. There will not be a partnership. Vince McMahon owns the league. Last time it was a 50-50 thing between him and Dick Ebersol / NBC. And this time, Vince McMahon will be the sole owner and operator, even though he will, as Andre said, let the football people make football decisions.
So 40.
So are we getting XFL on the network in that case? I didn't realize that.
See, and that's another thing too. That's. I mean, it makes it easier to me. That's just sort of an added benefit in some ways. That
he could even start a second, depending on what. I don't know the details of what Alpha Entertainment is going to be involved with other than the XFL, but if they get involved in more stuff, maybe Alpha Entertainment would have their own their own streaming services. Who knows? But I just want to point out that 8 teams, 40-man roster, that's 320 players. You really think they're going to find 320 quality professional football players not in the NFL? That's going to be tough.
I do. Here's what I think, that if you're a fringe NFL player, you might be the 6th or 7th guy who gets cut before the last preseason game, before the regular season, and you can be a star in the XFL and maybe get some more eyes on you for the time being, and then maybe go back to the NFL after a year or two of showing what you can do. Similar to what a lot of players in the NBA do when they go overseas, if they can come back and make more money. And some players become studs overseas, and it doesn't always work out. You have like Josh Childress made a ton more money going overseas, tried to come back, wasn't that great. There's a lot of different possibilities, though, that I think you can find still a lot of solid players that maybe fringe NFL players.
I just want to point out, though, that the people that do go overseas in the NBA, they're usually veterans that have been in the NBA for a while, because those that don't make the cut in the NBA that are younger, they'll usually end up in the G League, which I don't think that XFL is going to be an NFL version of the G League or anything like that. And the G League, for those who don't follow NBA, is like the NBA's NXT, but not as good as NXT.
Well, okay, so you bring
NXT is its own brand.
Okay, you bring up the aging stars going overseas. If I'm Larry Fitzgerald and I maybe have 1 or 2 years left in the NFL, but I could go to the I'm just using him as an example. I don't actually think that he would go to the XFL.
Because he wouldn't.
But I'm saying that wouldn't that prolong your career potentially, give you more money, and then also maybe extend your greatness too? I think that people will also tune in to see these guys who maybe can extend their careers, who are NFL greats, that to give it a shot. And maybe a lot of people think about this too. I know that Vince McMahon is not everyone's favorite owner, commissioner, or whatever, on screen or off screen, but Roger Goodell seems like one of the most evil people there is. And all the players, nobody is like, man, this Roger Goodell, I really love playing for him. I know he answers to the owners and not the players, but I never hear a player say anything good about Roger Goodell. And I think that maybe this opens the door for other people. I'm not saying it's going to be the best thing ever. I wonder, I think it's going to last longer than a year, certainly, but I'm not saying it's going to work. But I think that a lot of people who are the scorned lovers, I guess, of Roger Goodell, that they're going to say, you know what, man, screw you, I'm going to the XFL. I think that's a strong possibility with how many people that, like I said, I just don't hear these glowing remarks about Roger Goodell.
And you are right if the price is right in the XFL. Because, yeah, you don't hear a lot of glowing reviews for Roger Goodell, but you don't see people saying they're going to quit because they're getting bank in the NFL. So the XFL, for the XFL to lure those kind of players, Vince and Alpha Entertainment is going to have to really open up their pocketbooks and pay a guy, because a guy like Larry Fitzgerald is not going to, he'd rather go into retirement than to risk his health and his body playing against subpar talent for not a lot of money. And the kind of money that those kind of players make in the NFL, it's going to be tough for Vince and Alpha to, not to be confused with Y2J Chris Jericho, Vince and Alpha Entertainment to pay enough of those kind of players. But you never know. I'm curious to see. They got 2 years to figure things out, so we'll see.
Chandler, suppose you're a Cowboys fan, so suppose Tony Romo comes out of retirement to join an XFL team. Are you going to be tuning in each week to check that out?
I don't know about each week, but I would definitely, at least the first week or two, absolutely. I would 100% tune in to see that.
And that's where I think the XFL might have an opening right there for those players who think they can maybe get more money, extend their careers a little bit, especially if they can actually prove that the XFL is safer. I don't know how you're going to stop people from using their helmet as a weapon. I still don't know about a lot of these different things.
You have to pay Tony Romo a heck of a lot of money to get him out of his cushy job broadcasting, which I'm sure he's making plenty of money doing.
Oh, absolutely. Another thing that I think about is if it's more about regional scouting. I doubt that Wisconsin's going to get a team. They didn't get a team the first time around. Only, I think, 8 to 10 cities did. But I think that so we do the show in Sun Prairie, and we're right outside of Madison, Wisconsin. if there were former Badgers, I think that people in Wisconsin would care. I think they would tune in to watch former Badgers, or a guy who went to Sun Prairie High School who never made it to the NFL, or went to play at Iowa or Minnesota Mankato. Or I think that there is a spot for this.
But who and how long would they keep the attention span of the fans? Because you'd have to have like some Badger heroes.
Luke Swan, Jared Aberderis. I actually think there's quite a few people. Plus, if you're,
I love the Badgers, but I wouldn't continuously watch a poor product just because of those kind of names.
Here's what I'm saying. When John Lure is on the Milwaukee Bucks, all of a sudden my stepmom cares about the NBA. When he's not there, she doesn't really care. If the Frank Kaminsky, the ratings went up. It's not always about. There's a lot more ways to show your interest. And having interest and people talking about it, that does matter.
Oh, I agree, but it just, how long is that going to last, and how much of an effect is that going to have for years to come is the whole point I'm getting at.
I just think that regional, if it's regional, that people will care more. It's their homegrown guy. It's their guy who maybe blew out his ACL in college and never got to finish. Or I think that there's a market for the XFL in certain ways. However, I do think that some of the comments by Vince McMahon is shunning a lot of fans, whereas in WWE, there is a wrestler for everyone. I think you can look at someone, for me, like a Sami Zayn, that I'm like, yes, that's somebody maybe I could hang out with. Yep. I think there's wrestlers all over in different storylines that can get different people to be interested. We don't quite understand the Roman Reigns thing, but there sure are a hell of a lot of people who do. Typically, not to put people in the basket, but whatever, it's the women and children fans tend to be bigger fans of John Cena and Roman Reigns. I think that there's a different wrestler for everybody, whereas right now Vince McMahon is kind of saying this is for this group of people who, support our troops and stand for the national anthem. And I just think that there's a possibility that this could work out if it's done right. Some of the comments by Vince McMahon are shutting out a lot of people. Chandler, what do you think about the possibility of I don't know, a regional scouting and... Sorry, go ahead. There was an issue with your line, I think.
Oh, hello?
You're on.
You're on.
Okay, cool. Yeah, well, I think that would definitely help draw interest, but ultimately, I just hearing from that press conference, I didn't watch the entire press conference. I watched about 5 minutes or so of it, and then I stopped watching it because I wasn't liking what I was hearing, and then I read more into it because I just didn't feel like watching it anymore. And just the information that I have of how this league is going to be run and the regulations and that sort of thing, yes, that'll draw a little bit more interest for me. It would make me more invested, being a Badgers fan. But in having some of those names that you mentioned be a part of it, it would definitely draw more interest for me. But ultimately, I don't think that it's gonna make me a fan. I don't think it's gonna make me tune in regularly.
It just won't be enough long term because all the Badgers that at least I want to see are already in the NFL. And yeah, it would get some interest, but I just don't know if it'll be enough. And I just ultimately don't think XFL is going to work. And I think it's going to definitely work longer than it did last time, but I don't think it's going to be able to sustain success. But Vince McMahon has proven people wrong in the past, so I wouldn't put it past him for this to actually work. I wouldn't put it past him to kind of change his stance in the next, because it's 2 years. We got 2 years, so we'll see what happens. I wouldn't be surprised either way, but I don't think it's going to work in the long term.
There's other ways that this could work too. I think we talked about the aging superstars or being regional, and I'm playing a lot of devil's advocate here. But also you have to spend maybe 3 years in college before you can go to the NFL. Maybe if you're an 18-year-old stud and you can make money right away, sort of like the NBA used to do before the one and done rule. Maybe you can get a good player for 3 years before they go to the NFL, and I just think there's maybe that window. I don't know if he'll put the same kind of age restriction or limit to you have to go to college, but if you're a high school stud and maybe you think college isn't for you, and you're risking yourself, your body, and you could be an NFL talent, but you also could get hurt in college, and you don't want to risk that, and you can go straight for the payday at age 18, 19, or 20. I think that there's also a market for some of those 3, 4, and 5-star recruits to go get the money right away and maybe be put on a bigger pedestal than being one out of 90 guys on a college roster.
But do you honestly think that Vince McMahon's going to be able to pay more than those colleges pay? Whoops.
Oh, snap. I didn't know where that was going, but I liked where it came.
But in all seriousness, I kind of like that. I kind of like that idea. I do think it would be wise of Vince and the XFL to not have, obviously an age limit, 18 and older.
Absolutely.
I don't mean like 15-year-olds, come on now. But not a college limit where you have to be a certain amount of time in college. Because there might be some kids that are going to be, you know what, it's not a huge payday, but I can make money playing football as opposed to not make money. But then again, I did joke about it, but there's some behind-the-scenes stuff going on in NCAA. You don't know, but you suspect based on stories and teams getting busted for stuff in the past. So I don't know. I'll be curious to see. I'm not necessarily looking forward to it, but I'm interested to see what the ultimate outcome of the XFL is long term.
Some of the other stuff I thought was funny on Twitter is Vince claiming that he's going to listen to the fans, and that was kind of the biggest joke.
Gosh.
And then most of the punchlines were referring to John Cena or Roman Reigns in one way or another. So I did love that.
My favorite part was when he said something to the extent of, fans don't want to sit through 3 hours of football. When he has a 3-hour show Monday night, that's so hard to sit through.
And then maybe the most hypocritical statement was about the not employing guys who've had a DUI, whereas maybe 2 weeks before that, one of the Usos got a DUI or was driving under the influence. If he's
using the same criteria for the XFL, if he used that criteria in the WWE, half the roster would be gone. Because it sounds like he doesn't want people with any kind of criminal record. So if someone gets busted for smoking marijuana, they're not going to be in the XFL. And how many guys in WWE have gotten? Roman Reigns wouldn't be able to be in the XFL because he's gotten busted for not steroids. There was something else, but it was under that kind of. I think it was Adderall or something. But there's so many people that have been caught or suspended for minor things in WWE that if they were using that criteria that they use in the XFL would not be wrestling on our TV today, or sports entertaining on our TV today.
Also, the weirdest part I think is about the limiting the criminals or whatever. Like, here's what's going to get people. Certainly, Tim Tebow being on there, being in the XFL would be a huge deal. It'll be all over ESPN. It will. Also, Colin Kaepernick. It would be a huge deal. I know. Once again, that part's not likely. And then Johnny Manziel too. It would be very
wise. Their
version
of a heel.
Yeah, exactly. I just don't get why you would shun out a guy like a Colin Kaepernick or a Johnny Manziel. Certainly, Tim Tebow fits the bill for who he's gearing this towards. But if you look at Manziel and Kaepernick, those guys are going to be huge ratings getters, and that I think would get people in the stadium and people to pay attention. And especially once football is over, for people who don't, a lot of people who love the NFL don't love basketball. They don't love the NBA. They think it's they travel and it's whatever, and then baseball's too boring for people. I think if you get some of these players who've kind of been shunned by the NFL, that there is totally a market for the XFL. I know it's still a couple years away, but Chandler, are you going to tune in to see some of these guys that we mentioned?
Yeah, like I said earlier, it's all about the curiosity for me at this point. They do have time to prove or to build a roster and to build an actual roster and have names and all that type of stuff. But at this point, honestly, I just want to see what's going to happen. I just want to see who's going to be there. I'm not really interested in actually investing time in being a fan of this league right now, but I will the first couple of weeks tune in just to see what's what.
You could say it's complicated, which is looking forward to our outro for the day. Before we do, though, Chandler, you want to tell our wonderful listeners about our social media pages?
Absolutely. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and now YouTube. Search the Schmozcast.
There you have it. All right, folks, thanks for tuning in. Check us out next time at our regular time, 11 a.m., right here on Saturday mornings on 103.5 The Sun, WLSP, LP, Sun Prairie, Wisconsin.
Chill out. What you yelling for? Lay back, it's all been done before. And if you could only let it be, you would see I like you the way you are. When we're driving in your car and you're talking to me one-on-one. When you become somebody else, not anyone else, you're watching your back like you can't relax. You try to be cool, you look like a fool to me. Tell me why'd you have to go and make things so complicated. Seeing the way you're acting like somebody else gets me frustrated. And life's like this, and you fall and you crawl and you break and you take and you get and turn it into honestly. You promised me you're never gonna find you faking. No, no, no. You come over unannounced, dressed up like you're someone else. Where you in, where it's you see, you're making me laugh out when you strike your pose. Take off all your preppy clothes. You know you're not fooling anyone when you've become somebody else, not everyone else. You're watching your back, you can't relax. You're trying to be cool, you look like a fool to me. Tell me why'd you have to go and make things so complicated. I've seen the way you're acting like somebody else. It gets me frustrated. And life's like this, and you fall and you crawl and you break and you take what you get and you turn it into honestly. You promised me I'm never gonna find you faking.
This is Molly McCardle. You're listening to 103.5 FM WLSP LP Sun Prairie, Wisconsin.